Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to Youth Perspectives. Today, of course, I'm Rabab, and I have Azra with me to discuss with you guys today. And today's topic is going to be technology. Now, you all know that technology at this point in time is a huge part of our lives, and it has many benefits. Like, it can help you get things done faster. It's a platform for you to communicate with others. It's a platform for you to acquire new knowledge, and it just has all of these benefits. And it's a great thing. Without technology, we would be living in a time where things would be much less advanced, and it would be take more time to do things perhaps, or it'd be harder to communicate with people. But with technology, within seconds you can talk to your best friend, you can socialize with other people, you can look a question up, which in the old days, if you had a question, you had to go to the library, or you had to do your own research, go through many books, and then it would take you some time, and then you would find the answer to your question, like if you were doing a project or anything like that. So as technology is advanced and up to the point that we are in now, technology has come to a point where it is at a very high level, of course, compared to previous years, and it has a lot of benefits, and almost everyone uses some form of technology. So when we're speaking about different forms of technology, Azra, I want to come to you and ask you, what are the various forms of technology that we have, that we use today?
Yeah, definitely. So, first of all, the definition of technology really varies from a person to person. It's widely accepted that the definition is basically any advancement that helps us, that makes our lives easier. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be something based off of a screen. However, in today's day and age, that's what it has come down to. So, for this session, that's what we're going to refer to. Anything that has to do with screens or like technology, that's the more widely known definition, such as phones, laptops, computers, social media, TV, Siri, Alexa, all those things like that that really help our lives become better. And Rabab's right. Technology has so many helpful uses in our lives, and it really makes our lives easier in so many ways. However, with everything, there is a limitation. So I know a lot of the times we become so dependent on technology, it becomes really hard to function without it. Like imagine one day you leave your house without your phone. It's like a part of you is missing. There's actually a term for that too, because psychologically we're so attached to our phone, we act as if it's actually part of our own existence, and that's really sad. Something that I want to mention is that the fact that we're so dependent on technology is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that we have to be very careful about how we use it. So think about how Rabab mentioned how we use technology like everywhere. Like for example, we wake up to the first thing, our phone alarm, right? We set multiple alarms to get up in the morning, with our phone. Then we check our messages, we check our social media, we check whatever is going on, our news. And then we go downstairs, and then we open the TV, we watch some more news, and then we use our car and we drive. And I guess car is technology too, but we won't refer to technology as for this session. But still, we'll use like a navigating device to get to our place, to the point where sometimes we don't even know where things are located. We just rely on our GPS. Back in the olden days, people had to actually memorize where they had to go. Today, we don't really do that. Same thing, we have to memorize people's phone numbers back in the day, but today we just have like a list of contacts in our phones. And then we get to our destination, and then if you're a student in college or university, you will be using your laptops or your devices everywhere. I know when I was younger, a lot of the times we would use like paper and pencil to do a lot of our work, but today the education system has integrated technology to such an extent that actually a lot of the curriculum relies on technology. Like when I was in high school, my teacher would say one of the requirements for your class is that you have to bring a phone or a laptop that is working, and then the school and university provides free Wi-Fi for all the students, because a lot of the course content relies on you having access to the Wi-Fi and to the internet. So it's really, really interesting how over time our society has become dependent on technology. And then, when we go home, we talk on the phone with our friends. We can send messages to people across the world in a matter of seconds. We can have video chats with them and see them even though they're far away. Whereas decades ago, people would have to send letters or call some weird number on the wall phone. And it's really, really interesting how society has changed to the point where technology and humans coexist. So that's something that we need to really be aware of and also be careful of, because if we're so dependent on something, at the end of the day, it's really not that good.
Yeah, Azra, those were really amazing and interesting points that you made here. That, the first thing, she clarified what definition of technology we're talking about here, because technology can refer to many different things. Like she was saying, even car can be considered technology. But in this session, we're going to be discussing the technology that mostly applies to us, like as youth, and that's the technology, like Azra mentioned, the one that we see, the one that has screens on it. Like, for example, our cell phones, our iPads, our televisions, our laptops, our computers, and all of the things that fall into this category that has a screen. So Azra kind of highlighted the positive effects or the benefits of technology, and there are multiple, like I mentioned in the beginning, there are multiple benefits of using technology, of course. And like she mentioned, when you wake up, you have an alarm, right? So without that technology, you might never wake up. Like if you want to wake up for Fajr, you might never wake up. Like back in the old times, they didn't have alarms on their phones. And sometimes some of us put I know I've done this before, that you put alarms every 5 minutes just to make sure you wake up. So that wasn't really feasible in the old days. You had an alarm and then it rang once and then you woke up or you didn't wake up. So in that sense, technology really helps us when it comes to religion. It helps us to wake up for namaz, to wake up if we have to go to a majlis. It helps us in that way when it comes to our lifestyle. In addition, Azra also mentioned a crucial point, that a lot of our education nowadays depends on technology. Like if you go to your schools, for sure at every school, I guarantee, or at most schools, at least in America, you're going to have some sort of computer lab. Or, I know at my high school, they had something called an iPad cart, where you used iPads instead of, for doing your research, instead of, traditionally going to the library and getting your books, you did your research on your iPad. So, and mainly if you go to college, like Azra mentioned, or wherever, mainly in college, but as you grow older, you have access to more resources. Almost every person has a laptop that you're going to see. So, my point is that, we rely on technology a lot, and it has a lot of benefits. There's no denying that. But it allows us to acquire knowledge. Perhaps if you want to do research, like I mentioned, for a project, it just has so many benefits. It has a lot. When it comes to the internet, when we're talking about the technology, it has so many benefits. However, like Azra said, we have to have limits when it comes to technology, because sometimes if we don't utilize it effectively, we can go, what I'm meaning to say is that we can kind of exceed our limit and use it to the point where it harmfully affects us. Because like they say, too much of something can be bad for you. If you eat too much of anything, it can be bad for you. Similarly, if you use technology too much, it can be bad for you. So Azra, coming back to you, do you want to tell us some detrimental effects of technology?
Yes. Okay. Well, obviously, there are so many benefits of technology, but however, everything, there are two sides to everything. So there are so many harmful effects. I don't have to be here to tell you some of them, because I'm sure right off the bat, when I say technology, a few bad things will come to your mind. I feel like the first reason, which I mentioned previously, is the fact that we're so dependent on technology. We don't memorize people's phone numbers. We don't memorize people's home addresses. We don't. And that's a good reason. I always wondered how people woke up for Fajr back in the day. I don't know how they did it, but how sometimes you wake up for school every single day at a specific time, and then on the weekends when you don't have to get up for school, your body still wakes up at that time? It's because our body is, it's manufactured to, it has a biological clock. Your body has a biological clock. So if you wake up a certain time every single day, your body gets used to it. So technically there was an alarm in your body in itself. So I think that's how people woke up for Fajr. That was really interesting. So that makes you realize that we think that we rely on alarms, but honestly our body has its own alarm. That's really cool. But the fact that we're so dependent on that's the first harmful effect, because when we're dependent on something, that means without it, something is missing, that we are not able to properly function without technology. And as Muslims, who are supposed to be very strong and independent and rely on Allah, a lot of the times we rely on technology more than we rely on the guidance of the Quran or the lectures of a scholar. We rely on technology for so many things. So that becomes an issue when that becomes the most important part of our lives, because it shouldn't be, but it is. The second thing that technology makes us is it makes us really lazy, which is true. And I guess it's not something that we purposely do. We don't like purposely actively become lazy. It just happens over the course of however many years we become used to using technology. And as the years go by, technology becomes more and more and more advanced. Like now we have we have devices where we just say something out loud and the device hears you and records it in its system. For example, I knew one of my teacher's friends was opening the pantry and said, "Oh no, we ran out of pet food." And she just said it out loud, and her device said, "Oh, okay, adding pet food to the grocery list." Like, these devices hear everything you say and they record it, and they're kind of like human beings. They're trying to create artificial intelligence, and that's really, really interesting, but it's also scary because these devices and these robots are actually meant to do all your work for you, so you don't have to do it. And it might sound like it's really great, but at the end of the day, we become so lazy that we really don't have any motivation to do anything ourselves. Because back in the day, for example, for school and research, people had to go to the library. Like, they had to walk to the library and open an encyclopedia or a dictionary to get some information. But for us, all we do is press a few buttons on a phone and we have like access to like limitless information and knowledge. That's really great, and we can use that to our advantage, but a lot of the times we misuse and exploit the advantages we have with technology, and we become so lazy. So that's another issue with technology, that it does everything for us, so we don't have to, and that's a great thing. But at the end of the day, we adopt this really lazy lifestyle that we weren't meant to adopt. And it's just a side effect of the society that we live in and the time and age we live in. And there's no change. If we can't, like, it's not like we can do all those things that technology is doing for us, because we're just so used to it doing the technology doing those things for us. But we have to obviously be aware of that, and we have to kind of make sure that we don't let technology take over our lives, and we have to make sure that we still are capable of doing some things on our own. Another thing is that technology, although it's really great, it gives us a lot of access to things that are haram and sinful. And that's an issue that I see, especially when you go onto social media. And social media is such a huge topic. We're going to cover that actually in an entirely different session, because that's a huge topic and a very interesting and relevant and controversial topic. But for now, like, for example, social media, or for example, music, right? You scroll through and there's like music playing all over social media, all over the internet. Every video that you watch, every every link that you click, there's some bad word, there's some music, there's something something haram that's going on. And it's so easy to expose yourself. There are lots of websites that we use for entertainment. We watch movies and shows, and we go on social media, we talk to our friends, we click links, we read articles, and we get exposed to this like westernized culture to such an extent that we become desensitized to the things that are supposed to be wrong. And then we become so used to it, because every single day through technology we're being fed all these sinful things, to the point where our mind starts to think that it's okay, and it's really not. But our mind becomes fooled into thinking that it is. And that's the power of the human mind. If it keeps getting exposed to something, that becomes its everyday normal thing. So we have to be very careful, because technology can expose us to so many things that we shouldn't be exposed to, but we can't help it. Even if you're just like on a school website, you know, all those advertisements that come at the side, that sometimes those advertisements aren't really great. A lot of the times when I click on websites, I have to like cover the website if my younger siblings are there, because they can't see the ads, and that's really sad. So we have to be very careful about that. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention one of the other detrimental effects is that it really affects our social relationships with other people, because we don't feel the need to have this face-to-face interaction anymore now, because we have the ability to just contact people like in a second, half the world away. So back in the day, people would like write letters, and they would go make out time to make plans, and they would do all these things to meet people face to face. They would actually like talk to each other. But what we do is we just like send messages, tag each other in posts. We will call. Even calling these days is very rare. Or like video chatting, that's very rare too. And back in the day when it first existed, people did that a lot. But now if someone just messages you once in a week, that's enough. And we don't feel like we have to have social interactions anymore, because we still stay in contact with someone for so long. And back in the day, the reason for social interaction was that so we could be in contact with these people. But now, since phones do that for us, we really kind of lose the the purity and like the importance of social interactions, and that's really, really sad. So again, in conclusion, the 4 harmful effects that I mentioned was that we're too dependent on technology. Technology makes us lazy. It affects our social relationships, and it exposes us to sins a lot more than we should be exposed.
Okay, Azra, those are some really, really great points. And I especially liked your point that, technology opens our door, and what I mean by that is that it increases our access to haram content. And that is very, very true, whether you're on Instagram and especially on Snapchat, I know. And if you go on some website, like Azra was saying, if you try to watch any movies or anything online, bad ads will pop up. Like, I've experienced that, and it's really bad, especially for yourself too, and your younger siblings and the people around you. You don't want to expose them to things like that, and they're like really unimaginably bad things. So when using technology, we are exposed to this wide array of negative things that are haram, and that's bad for our eyes. God on the day of judgment, whatever, it said that, our body parts, they're going to start speaking of what haram we've done with them. So if you've seen haram things with your eyes, even if you didn't intend, like, if you're purposely, okay, let me put this in a better way, that, if you're purposely exposing yourself to haram things, you want to limit that, you want to limit your chances of seeing these haram things. So that's why we need to kind of limit ourselves on technology, so there's less chances of us being exposed to these things. So that was a really great point that I liked of yours, Azra. And just kind of briefly going over Azra's points, that we're too dependent on technology. And, that's a bad thing, because, back in the day, people didn't have as much technology, and so they used other methods to do their things, like I mentioned earlier. So, this dependency, like, I wanted to kind of give an example. Back when I was in elementary school, I didn't have my own phone, of course. And whenever I needed to go home, like if I needed to call my parents, I knew their phone numbers. But now there's come to a point where we have everyone's phone number in our contacts in our phone. So now I don't even know my brother. I know my parents' phone numbers because, I learned that from before. But I don't know my brother's phone numbers. Like, if someone asks me, can you give me your brother's phone number? I'm going to have to look in my phone. And, things like this, we're not always, what if, like, if God forbid we're in a situation, in an emergency situation where we don't even have our phones died, these aren't like things that last forever, of course. And we don't know our relatives' phone numbers. That's a really big issue. Like, I know my grandma, she used to have an address book, and she literally had everyone's phone number memorized. And, that's because she lived in a time where she didn't have phones like this, like with screens where she could save all the contacts in there. So, knowing the phone numbers really helped her. Like, literally, I'm telling you, whenever I asked her someone's phone number, she knew it off the bat. And it even surprised me because I didn't know that many phone numbers. I know only very limited phone numbers, and that includes, like, my parents and, like, one of my friends. That's because I called her a lot. But, social media, not social media, that came out of my mouth. Technology, when we use technology, we're at this point in our lives, we're too dependent on it. In addition, like Azra said, it makes us lazy, of course. Like she said, we may not even realize it, but the more we use technology, we become lazier to do things, like to get up and to do something. Like, I've noticed this, maybe you notice this in your own behavior, that, if you're on your phone and then someone tells you, okay, can you go get me a glass of water? Can you do this? You feel like this urge not to get up, and you just don't feel like doing it because, you've been sitting and now for too long, and you just don't want to get up because you've been so invested in your technology. In addition, she said, it affects our social skills. If we're communicating, okay, there is a benefit, like I said in the beginning, that technology allows us to communicate with people who are far away, and that's really good. Of course, we need to keep our connections, especially with our family that live overseas. However, if we go beyond our limit of using it, and if we're always just, the only way we talk to people is through technology, then that's not a good thing, because, as humans and in this society, we need to have people skills. You need to be able to talk to other people. You need to be able to have good social skills so you can communicate your ideas effectively. And, especially also in the future, I'm just talking, when it comes to job interviews and stuff, you need to have social skills. If you're a person who's always invested in their phone and does not have a lot of human contact, then that's going to be something that's going to be bad for you in the long run, because you need to be able to talk to people and they need to be able to see that. And so to put that into practice, when it comes to long-term interviews or anytime you need to talk to someone important or anything, talking to anyone in the future, your future colleagues or anything, or your future peers in college or anything like that, then you need to be able to talk to them, or they're going to think you're kind of an isolated person, and you don't want that. And that leads me into another detrimental or negative effect of technology, is that it can lead to social isolation. If we have lack of contact with the people around us, then it's going to make us lose our people skills, our social skills. And when you're walking, you usually see, or people around you, they usually have their headphones plugged in and they're on their phones, like they're in their own little world. So we really need to learn from this and say, that it can lead us to isolation. In addition, here I'm just going to quickly run through some other detrimental effects. Another effect would be obesity. Now this is kind of more of looking at the scientific aspect of it, but when we use our technology a lot, then it decreases our will, or we don't exercise as much. So back in the day, people didn't have as much screen technology as we do, so they would go out a lot. Like, I know when I was little, my neighbors would always come to my house and they would ask me to play outside, and that would kind of be my physical activity of the day, and that was when I didn't have as much technology and wasn't invested in it as much. So that was good for me because, first of all, I got to interact with people in person and I got my daily exercise. So if you're always using your technology, then you're not going to be able to exercise as much as you need to stay healthy. Another effect that may happen with technology is depression, because taking all of these harmful effects into account, lack of human contact, overeating, this can lead to a state of depression, because when you're overeating and you haven't talked to people in person, you kind of become, like I mentioned before, isolated in your own little world. And when you're by yourself, maybe negative thoughts come in your mind and you don't have anyone to share those with, so you may fall into a state of depression. Also, a very important one is that it can lead to poor sleep habits. Now, this is very important because I know, I do this myself and I'm going to try to decrease it. But, sometimes you're staying up late and you really don't realize how the time goes by, and then you're on your phone, you're just going through your messages or you're talking to someone or something. But if you're up really late, you're decreasing the amount of time you have to sleep. And sleep is crucial for us to live longer and to live healthier lives. So if we're on our technology all the time and then we have homework on top of that and everything, we're going to be up for a really long time and we're going to get less sleep. In addition, this is kind of more related to social media, but technology does create a platform for bullying, and maybe in another session when we talk about social media, we'll go more into that. But, technology opens our access to so many different people. And, some of those, not all people are, genuinely good people. So, they may try to bully you or take advantage of you or something like that. So we definitely want to avoid situations like that. And, you don't usually, back in the old day, the scenario was that, if you had a bully at school, you had somewhere to come. You could come home to talk to your mom. You had kind of your safe place at home. But now when you have technology, you're in your home, so you don't really have a safe place. Technology doesn't have a safe place for you. So, it opens a platform for that. In addition, when using technology, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's a lack of privacy when it comes to technology. Literally, if you try to look someone up, and this happens with most people, that you can find their address and you can find their phone number easily. That's not safe for you. If someone is in a conflict with you, and you never know what's going on in a person's mind, and if they know where you live, that can be really bad for you. So technology has a lack of privacy embedded in it. And also, if you notice, no matter what website you go on, there's always ads coming up that, relate to whatever you searched up. So it's kind of creepy. It's like someone's kind of looking over whenever you're on your technology. So we kind of have to be aware of that and, have our limits when it comes to that. In addition, technology can also be very deceitful. I know, for example, there's a lot of scholarships online, but sometimes scholarships aren't real, or, this happens so much, but, sometimes a random website pops up and it says, you've won $1 million. Now, guys, if you think about that realistically, no one's going to give you $1 million out of the blue, right? So things like that lead us to thinking that, technology can be very deceitful also, because there can be people making fake profiles, pretending to be a different person, or putting up stuff that isn't true, that distracts people to the wrong path. In addition, just quickly going over this, it creates like a warped sense of reality for us, because like I mentioned before, when you're always on your technology, then you're not interacting with real people in person. So again, with those people skills, it affects our people skills. But if we're always online, we're never going to know how to effectively communicate with other people. So like I watched this show once, and there was this guy, and then he would always be on his he would play this, I don't know what it's called, but those games where you pretend like you're like in some animated character, and then there's like you interact with other people, and there's other online users. I don't know, the name isn't coming in my mind, but it was a game like that. And so that was kind of weird, because then his friend would tell him, you're not going to the bathroom, you're on this like literally all the time. So it was really detrimental for him. And again, this is lastly, this is a huge detrimental effect of technology, that it is a huge distraction for us. When we go to school, when we're trying to learn or anything like that, technology creates a huge distraction for us, because when I come home and I try to do my homework, I have my phone with me, and I have this temptation to go on my phone and talk to people, and literally, I'm telling you, you guys do not know how much time using your technology wastes, because sometimes you might be like, okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute break on my phone, but that 5 minutes eventually turns into an hour, and that's really bad for us. So we really need to be aware that we have to limit our use on technology, because we can become distracted. Also, another thing, technology, it said that, I looked somewhere and did some research, and I found out that technology can also increase our stress. That's definitely not good for us, especially when you're going to school. You need to keep your grades up. In order to live a good life, we have to decrease as much stress as possible. So we really, to kind of conclude my points here, we really need to be aware that technology is a great thing, but we have to learn to limit ourselves from it, because it can be a distraction. We can eliminate our social skills. We can get into social isolation. We can get into depression, obesity. All these things come from like excessive use of technology. Now, guys have to understand that don't completely stop using technology. Technology, trust me, is a great thing, but we just have to know how to limit our time using this really good platform. So now, coming back to Azra, when we're looking at these detrimental effects, how do you think we can mitigate these effects?
Yeah, definitely. But before I answer that question, I just want to refer to 2 points that Rabab made. One was about how sometimes we, go and click on things, and then our computer kind of gains information about what we're interested in, and then those ads start popping up in places, right? Like one day if we search up cheap flights, the next day when we go on a separate website, we'll see like a bunch of ads for, airlines, because our computer keeps track of what we do. And what I found out a few months ago, a lot of apps actually have permission by phone companies to enable microphones while you speak, because our phone has microphones, right? When we speak on the phone, or when we're like talking to like Siri. So our phone has a microphone, and some apps actually ask the phone companies to open that microphone, so in the background it's open, so as you're talking, your phone kind of gathers information. And that's why sometimes you realize that if you're talking, even with a friend, if you're just sitting there and talking about something like, food places to eat, like, you want pizza. After a while, you'll notice that when you open your computer or you open your phone, a bunch of ads for that will show up, because your phone is actually keeping track of what you're saying. And it's not for every app, it's for some apps, but that was really scary when I realized that, because everything we say is being recorded. That's really weird. And honestly, the second thing that I wanted to mention is just the fact that we, like Rabab said, we're so used to technology. We have become a spoon-fed, entitled generation. And that's just all we care about. Like technology, that's the only life we know. And we have to be very careful about that. But moving back to how to mitigate the detrimental effects. The first thing is to understand that you can't obviously take technology out of your life. That's obviously not a smart solution, because technology is used for many good things. But with that being said, a lot of people, when it comes to solutions, they think that the best way is to just put your phone away for like 2 hours every day and just not focus on it. I tried doing that, and that's very hard, because sometimes people really rely on phones to communicate with you. Like this literally happened just yesterday. I put my phone away for 20 minutes. Just 20 minutes, it was on silent. when I opened my phone, I had 10 missed calls from different people. It was really, really scary because I was like, why are all these people trying to contact me? And they were all people I knew. They weren't like spam like calls. 10 people were trying to contact me in just a span of 20 minutes because my phone was off and I wasn't there for them. Thankfully, it was nothing so urgent, but what if it was? What if it was an emergency? So obviously, a smart solution wouldn't be to just completely cut off yourself from technology, but it would be in a way that you can keep your phone near you, but obviously you get so many messages, maybe only address the ones that are like time sensitive. And then at the end of the day, or you could a lot of specific time to check all your other notifications. Also, another thing Rabab mentioned is that when you go to sleep, technology kind of decreases the amount of time you sleep. So one other way to mitigate the effects is to like not use your phones or laptops or watch TV right before you go to sleep, because it's scientifically proven that I'm not really well versed in like the terms that are used for technology, but whatever emits that bright light from like, screens, obviously screens have that light from TVs, laptops, phones, whatever light is emitting, it fools your brain into thinking that it's daytime because it's bright, right? Your brain thinks whenever something's bright, the sun is out. Whenever something's dark, that means it's night. So when you keep exposing yourself to bright screens, even at night, your brain gets tricked into thinking that it's still daytime. And then even if you put your phone away or your laptop or TV, you close it, your brain will still have a very troubled time falling asleep, and you'll fall asleep way slower, and your quality of sleep won't be as good as if you just turned your phone off like an hour before you go to sleep. So a lot of studies prove that at least an hour before you go to sleep, turn off all your screens. Don't expose yourself to that because it will affect your sleep. It'll affect the quality of your sleep, and then it'll affect how you live your day after you sleep. Another way that you can mitigate the detrimental effects of technology is to not let it affect your relationships, because how many times do we finally make plans to like face-to-face, have face-to-face interactions and go hang out with people, and then we're all on our phones? You can see this at the dinner table. Like it's so rare that family eats dinner at the same time these days. But even if you do, we're all on our phones. If you're with your friends, you're on your phones. If you're at a party, right, or a social gathering or anything, you're not interacting with people. You're literally on your phone in the corner talking to people who are not there, and that's really, really. Not only is it sad on your part, but it's actually really disrespectful. If people are there in front of you and you're not giving them the attention they deserve, and you're actually focusing on something else that's not in the room, that's really disrespectful. That's like someone's talking to you and you're just like not listening to them. And that's really, really something that a Muslim shouldn't do, especially because we have such important values. So it kind of compromises our values as a Muslim as well if we keep using this technology. Another thing is obviously be careful how you use it, the websites you go to, and obviously that clickbait Rabab mentioned, it's everywhere. Oh, you win $1,000. Oh, congratulations, you are 1 millionth subscriber. Here, you get a free this, or they ask you to fill out a bunch of surveys. Be very careful about how you use or how you click on those things, because a lot of the times they just plant viruses on your computer, and it becomes very sad. Once that happened to me, I was very young and I clicked on something, I forgot what it was, and this like page came up. It just froze my computer, and I could not use my laptop for like a week. I had to go get it fixed. So it's just really a hassle. It's not worth it. Believe me, if someone says they're gonna give you free money, it's a lie. Like, you have to work for money. You will not get free money. If that was the case, poverty wouldn't exist. So don't ever fall for clickbait. And lastly, and this is the biggest thing that actually we need to do to mitigate the detrimental effects of technology, is to really, really be careful how we interact with people on there, because this has been an issue in the past month or so. I've realized with just people who have interacted with a lot of the times on social media, or just where you're messaging someone just on technology, a lot of the times, obviously, when you're typing something with words, your tone and your intent and your intention is not really obvious when you're talking to someone. So if I just text her about, I'm on my way, I don't know, she doesn't know if I mean it like in a happy way, like, oh, I'm on my way, or if like, I'm on my way, or I'm on my way. Like, she doesn't know in what tone I'm saying it in. And a lot of the times, this paves the path for so many misunderstandings. There have been so many occasions when someone has messaged something, especially on a group chat, always happens on a group chat, someone messages something and it comes out as disrespectful or rude, and then other people get involved. And this has happened multiple times when people say things and they don't mean it in a bad way, but other people take it in a bad way. And this affects and destroys social relationships, because trust and relationships are so sensitive and delicate. It takes a really long time to build them up. And then with social media or like with technology, you could just break them down in a second. And that's really upset. I mean, obviously if someone just sends you one rude message, your entire reputation about them can be, destroyed. So be very, very careful about how you communicate with people. And if you are talking about a sensitive matter, it's really better to just talk about it in person. And you see this all the time. A lot of the times you just go to like the comment section of social media posts, and people just, when you're behind a screen, it's so easy to, be negative. So really be careful about how you interact with people. Even if you have good intentions, be careful about how you're saying it, because a lot of the times we say things that we don't mean for it to be in a bad way, but other people might take it in that way. So obviously be careful about how you speak, and obviously always try to choose face-to-face interactions over social media. So again, in conclusion, to mitigate the detrimental effects, first understand that you can't really take out technology. That's not even a sensible answer. Obviously, technology will become even more part of our lives as the time goes by. But obviously, be aware of how you use it, and really pick and choose how much time you're going to spend on technology, what things you're going to address on technology. Maybe just address the important calls and messages first, and then the entertainment purposes you care about that later. And then don't go on your phone or any devices an hour before you go to sleep, because it will affect your sleep. And then lastly, be very careful about how you communicate with people online, because people do have feelings. And like Rabab said, if people are bullied online, it's very hard because they don't have like a safe place to go, because technology follows them everywhere. There is no escape. So be very careful, because your words can have like a profound effect on someone else's lives. And that's one of the main reasons why depression and stress and suicide exists, because technology is such an easy way for people to be rude to each other and to really destroy people's social self-esteem and their outlook on life. So it's really, really scary, but be very careful about how you use technology, because it's really great, but with every good thing comes its detrimental effects.
Yeah, Azra, I really like the points that you made, especially the point that, we really have to be careful how we communicate on technology, because, people can easily misunderstand what you're saying. If you're going to, like Azra said, if you're saying I'm on my way, you might be saying that in an angry way, or you might be saying that in a happy way. The person will never know your true intention. So, we want to be as clear as possible when it comes to communication on technological platforms. In addition, I love that great point that you made, Azra. I just kind of wanted to give some advice on how we can mitigate these effects. And number one, I think what we should do is we have to understand what we're addicted to. So, kind of just at the end of the day, when you go to bed, kind of analyze what technology did I use the most today? Or in general, what technology am I mostly invested in? For most of us, I know for me, it would be my phone. But for each of us, it's different. Some people like to do gaming or like to watch movies, so they're on their computers more than their phones. So it just varies from person to person. For me, like I said, it's my phone. So we have to understand what we're addicted to. That's kind of the first step. If we feel that we're on something all the time or most of the time, and we feel that we're addicted to it, then we need to understand what type of technology we are addicted to. In addition, so that's the first step. We have to understand what we're addicted to, so to prevent ourselves from kind of becoming slaves to our technology. The second step is I feel like this is really good advice for everyone. You should schedule time every day to utilize technology. And, you can say, like, for example, every day I'm going to go on my phone for only 1 hour. Okay? Or, if 1 hour is too less for you, depending on other things that you have to do, say, I'm only going to use my phone today for 2 hours. Especially if you have an exam coming up, you might want to limit that time. But from person to person, my advice is you want to have a time slot every day that, for this many minutes, I'm going to use my phone or I'm going to use my computer. So then I use my time effectively. I'm able to exercise effectively, so you make sure you don't fall into the negative effects of technology. So a way, most of us are probably like, how would I know how long I'm spending on my phone? Because sometimes, a minute, sometimes an hour really feels like 5 minutes to us, when we're invested in our technology. But, however, there is a way. I know on iPhones, they have something called screen time. So if you go in your settings, you can see actually how long you've spent in different things, like how much you've spent social networking or doing something productive. So it tells you, literally divides the time up and tells you how many minutes or how many hours you've spent in each category. So that's really good for you. If, say, at the end of the day, you're analyzing yourself and you've spent like 2 hours in social networking and 1 minute or 1 hour in like productivity, then you know that you're wasting a lot of time. So it just kind of, screen time in iPhones, I don't know much about Androids, but I know in iPhones there's screen time. So every day you can analyze, did I go in my time slot for technology today? There's also a thing in iPhones called downtime. So it blocks all your applications after a certain time. Say you want to go to bed, especially this will help you with your sleeping habits. Like if you want to go to bed at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever, you want to go to bed early, obviously, so you can wake up early in the morning, go to school and everything. You can set something in your settings in downtime which will block all your applications except like the important ones, like your phone and messaging. Obviously you need those to be on if God forbid any emergency happens. But the downtime allows you to not go on your phone beyond a certain time at night. And so you can say I'll allow myself to use my phone from like 5 a.m. to like 8 p.m. and then that's it. So that will definitely help you when it comes to sleeping habits. So again, like my point here is that in any way you can, even if you don't have an iPhone, I'm sure in Androids or in other phones they have something like this. I'm sure like as technology is advancing, there's so many ways for us to track how much time. Like you can also look at the time yourself. Okay, I started using my phone at this time and I ended at this time. How much time have I gone in my allotted time? So that's really important for us to schedule and maintain that. So basically my point here is that, another thing I wanted to mention is that, we have to try to be social. Like I mentioned, technology can take us away from the from our social skills, from keeping our social skills. So you want to go out to, especially like this kind of ties in. We wanted to kind of wrap up with as Muharram's coming to an end, we wanted to I wanted to mention this point with this, saying, when you go to majlises, that's also a platform for you to interact with people of your community, people who are similar like you. And we kind of mentioned this before, to kind of keep that environment around you, that Islamic environment, so that we're not too much invested in the American culture and we keep ourselves in Islam. So again, another way you can socialize and increase your people skills is by simply talking to people in your community. So that's another very important thing, a way that you can avoid the detrimental effects of technology. The more you interact with people that would benefit you in two ways. You become social, and you're exposing yourself to your religion more. So just to kind of conclude this program, I hope you all were able to learn something about technology and about how you can avoid, and hopefully our tips and advice helped you on how you can limit these effects and hopefully limit the time you spend on technology, put that implementation into our lives. And coming back into the idea of Muharram, Azra, do you want to make any last remarks about Muharram?
Yes, definitely. Rabab made a really good point about how majlises are a perfect opportunity for us to socialize with other people while gaining that Islamic information. And I just want to mention that I know detaching ourselves from technology is very hard, but the fact that a lot of us, we make this like pact to not watch TV for a certain amount of days, we're so busy with majlises, we don't even have time to be on our phones that much. So Muharram and Safar is a perfect time that it shows us that it can be done. Like we are not as dependent on technology as we think we are. Just like Ramadan makes us realize that we're not as like food addicted as we think we are. Same thing, Muharram and Safar can make us realize that technology is not something that we really have to rely on for every single thing in our lives. And always remember that at the end of the day, everything that we do, our intentions should be for Allah, and that for being a representative of Allah and for Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. And anything that deviates us from that path should not be a priority. So use your technology to for its great benefits, because there's so many benefits, but be very careful about the detrimental effects, because the last thing we want is something which has the power to do so good to actually lead us into the wrong path. So just be careful of how you use things and always be aware of your intentions.
Yeah, so that was a very great conclusion point, that as we go to majalis, we really don't have time to go on our phone, and that really should be the case. We should be going to, as Muharram comes to an end, we should go to every majlis that we have a chance that we can go to, and to acquire as much knowledge as we can, and to put ourselves in an environment and interact with as many people in our community as we can, to improve those social skills. And of course, like I just mentioned, that to increase our knowledge, because these majalis, this is just that one time in the year where you have access to so much great information that you don't even need to use your technology for. When you go to majalis, you have a speaker who speaks there for 30 minutes to an hour, and in those 30 minutes to an hour, you get so much information. And so like I mentioned before, and we've kept mentioning this in our programs, take your notebooks to majalis, take as many notes as possible, try to talk to more people, so then the only people you don't talk to are the ones in your phone. And like Azra mentioned, that you have to use technology for your benefits, obviously, but you don't want to use it too much for it to have negative effects on you. So I just wanted to end this program by saying that we should, as Muharram comes to an end, attend as many majalis as you can, and take advantage of this time, because who knows if we never know when we're gonna leave this world or anything like that. Hopefully, inshallah, we're gonna be here next year, but we want to take full advantage of all of these majalis that are available for us, all of these places we can go to indulge ourselves in our community and to acquire knowledge. So I just wanted to say, continue going to majalis and learn as much as you can, and I hope you guys took some tips and advice on how you can limit yourself from technology, and I hope you guys can grow as better people through this advice. So thank you, and I hope you guys learned something, and we'll see you next week on Youth Perspectives.